Alex had never imagined that a routine space mission would land him inside the palace of an alien queen. The ship he was exploring had long been abandoned, or so he thought, drifting silently in the outer edge of the galaxy. Its hull was enormous, shimmering with strange metallic colors that seemed to change depending on the angle of the light. Curiosity had always been his guide, and now it had carried him far beyond the reach of his own kind. Stepping through the airlock, Alex found himself in a corridor that twisted like a living creature. The walls pulsed gently, and strange markings glowed faintly. He instinctively reached for his communicator, only to find it useless. No signals, no voices, nothing familiar. His stomach knotted, but he forced himself to walk forward. "Hello?" he called, his voice echoing strangely. The corridor answered with silence, except for the faint hum beneath the walls. Then, at the end of the hall, a figure appeared. Tall, regal, and undeniably alien, with eyes like molten gold and skin that shimmered like silver metal. She wore robes that flowed as if moved by their own will. Alex froze. "You shouldn't be here," the figure said, her voice melodic but commanding. "This area is restricted." I didn't know," Alex said quickly. "I'm just exploring. I won't stay where you are." The Queen's words carried authority, yet not all were sharp. There was a hint of curiosity, a softening around the edges, that made Alex feel less like a trespasser and more like a puzzle to be examined. Before Alex could respond, another figure appeared behind the Queen. A smaller alien, dressed in simple robes, with a calm presence. "She is nervous," this one said quietly to the Queen. Then, with a smile that seemed oddly warm for someone in a palace, the alien looked at Alex and said, "Follow me."
Alex
hesitated. His mind screamed caution, but his legs obeyed. The smaller alien led him through twisting hallways and open spaces filled with floating lights and hovering objects. Alex could barely comprehend the technology. It seemed alive, reacting to their presence as if the palace itself were conscious. Eventually, they entered a chamber that was open and expansive, filled with alien furniture that defied human architecture. The Queen stood in the center, observing Alex with a gaze that made him feel small and exposed. The smaller alien, the nurse, as Alex later learned, smiled at him again. "I am Nira," she said. "You may call me that. And you, human, are called." "Alex," he said. "Alex Turner." "Alex Turner," Nira repeated. "Interesting name. You are far from your home. Are you frightened?" Alex blinked. "Yes, a little. Been trying to ease the tension," he added, "but I've faced worse." Nira tilted her head. "You are bold. Or foolish." She chuckled softly. "Perhaps both." Alex laughed nervously. "Maybe." He looked at the Queen. She had not moved, but her gaze had softened slightly. "I suppose I should apologize. I didn't mean to intrude. I was just exploring." The Queen raised one hand, a gesture that froze Alex in place. "You do not speak carelessly, human. Every word matters here." Alex swallowed. Right. Of course, he realized that humor might be dangerous here, but his mind raced. How could he respond without offending them? Then, instinctively, he said something that had often eased tension on Earth. "Yes, dear." He immediately regretted it. The words sounded ridiculous, absurdly casual in the presence of a royal alien queen. His ears burned, but instead of anger, Nira laughed a sound soft and melodic, filling the chamber. She stepped closer to Alex and almost playfully said, "Then you are my mate." Alex froze. "Mate," he repeated, eyes wide. I didn't mean you said yes, dear. That is enough." Nira's smile widened. "In our terms, it signifies bond, trust, partnership. You are not a threat to her. Perhaps you may even be a help."
Alex!
He had never felt so confused, so out of place. He had studied alien cultures in books and simulations, but nothing had prepared him for this. His joke, his attempt at humor, had landed him in a position he did not understand. "I don't know if I can live up to that," he said honestly. Nira nodded. "Few humans could, but perhaps that is why you are here." For hours, Alex was guided through the palace. Nira explained customs, gestures, and subtle social rules. He learned that calling someone mate was a term of deep respect and commitment, not something to be taken lightly. He also realized that humans possessed qualities that aliens underestimated: intuition, unpredictability, and courage. These qualities seemed to calm the queen, who remained largely silent but observant throughout Alex's introduction to her world. Despite the elegance of the palace, danger was never far. Whispers among the palace staff hinted at factions that sought to challenge the queen. Alex began to notice subtle glances, gestures of warning, and muted conversations that paused whenever he entered a room. His presence, though accidental, had become a point of interest, and perhaps concern for many. During one tense meal, Alex witnessed the queen's advisors debating strategies for defending the palace against a potential coup. Their alien language was fast and melodic, but Nira translated key points, warning Alex to remain neutral. "They will test you," she said. "Some will see you as an ally, others as a threat. Your humor, your words, they may carry power you do not understand." Alex nodded, overwhelmed. The thought of diplomacy, politics, and alien intrigue was exhausting. Yet he could not deny a strange thrill, a sense that his presence mattered in ways he could not yet grasp. Later, as Alex explored a quieter wing of the palace, he discovered a training room. Alien warriors practiced combat moves that defied gravity, wielding weapons that glimmered with energy. One of the instructors noticed him and raised an eyebrow. Alex, realizing he was being watched, raised his hands in surrender. "Curious human," the instructor said in a voice like stone. "You have courage. Perhaps skill, if guided." Nira appeared beside him. "He is not a warrior," she said, "but he may still save lives in ways we cannot foresee. Watch and learn." Alex spent the next hours learning alien customs, trying to mirror their movements and understand their combat etiquette. He fell several times, tripped over gravity shifts, and caused minor chaos with the strange training equipment. Yet the queen observed silently, and each mistake seemed to humanize him in her eyes rather than diminish his standing. By the end of the day, Alex understood one thing clearly: his joke, his careless words had changed his life. He was no longer just an explorer or an intruder. He had become a participant in an alien world, a human whose instincts, humor, and adaptability might hold unexpected value. As he prepared to rest in a small guest chamber provided by Nira, Alex looked out at the stars through a massive window. The alien moons cast light across the palace floor. He realized that the universe was far larger, stranger, and more beautiful than he had ever imagined. Tomorrow would bring challenges, political intrigue, unknown threats, and the ever-present question of what being a mate truly meant in this alien culture. But for now, he allowed himself a small smile. Somehow, despite everything, he felt a strange sense of belonging. He had stepped into a world that could have crushed him, but instead, it had offered curiosity, trust, and the first hint of a bond that spanned species. And as the lights dimmed and the palace settled into quiet, Alex knew that his life, ordinary in every way on Earth, had become extraordinary among the stars. The next morning, Alex woke to a strange calmness in the palace. The corridors were quiet, the soft hum of the walls, the only sound. Despite the beauty around him, he felt a tension he could not shake. Nira had warned him that the political factions within the palace were already watching him closely. Every word, every movement, could be interpreted in ways he did not understand. As he stepped into the hallway, Nira appeared beside him. "Today you will see why your presence matters," she said, her voice calm, yet carrying weight. "There are those who wish to challenge the Queen's rule. They will test you, whether they know it or not." Alex nodded, unsure how to prepare for a challenge that seemed invisible and unpredictable. I'll do my best," he said. "You always do," Nira replied, with a small smile. "That is why the Queen trusts you." Their first stop was the Queen's strategy chamber. The room was vast, filled with holographic displays and floating models of distant planets. The Queen stood at the center, silent, watching her advisors argue in rapid alien speech. Nira translated snippets for Alex. They question your value, human. They say you are naive, weak, a joke. But the Queen disagrees. Alex felt the weight of their scrutiny. These beings so different from humans were capable of seeing every small detail, every hesitation. Yet, as he observed, he noticed patterns in their arguments, flaws in their logic that the Queen's advisors overlooked. Something inside him sparked a mixture of human intuition and boldness. When the discussion turned to a potential threat from a neighboring system, Alex spoke. If they attack the northern flank, it will be because they expect weakness there. But your forces are strongest on the eastern wall. If you reposition strategically, you can lure them where they are vulnerable. A hush fell over the room. The Queen's advisors, who had dismissed him moments before, now regarded him with sharp interest. The Queen herself tilted her head slightly, a hint of approval in her eyes. Nira placed a hand on his shoulder. Do not be afraid to speak. Your human logic is unusual, but it works. Over the next hours, Alex worked closely with the palace strategists, helping to organize defenses and propose unconventional tactics. He noticed that humans, unlike the aliens he observed, often relied on creativity and instinct rather than rigid rules. His suggestions, though simple, began to shift the balance of their planning. As evening fell, a warning alarm echoed through the palace. The plotting faction had launched an unexpected assault on one of the outer gates. Alien warriors moved with precision, but the attackers were skilled, using weapons and techniques Alex had never seen. Stay close to me, Nira instructed. Leading him to a command post overlooking the battlefield, Alex watched as the Queen's forces met the attackers. Despite their strength, the enemy's tactics were clever, and even the experienced commanders struggled to adapt. Alex's mind raced. He noticed a pattern in the attackers' movements, a small flaw in their coordination. If you focus here, he pointed, they will expose themselves to your flank. The officers hesitated, unsure of this human suggestion. Nira gave a subtle nod, and they followed his guidance. Moments later, the enemy force was thrown into confusion. The tide of the battle shifted. The Queen watched silently, then, for the first time, spoke directly to him. You are not like the others, she said, her voice calm but firm. Humans are unpredictable. Perhaps that is why you are valuable. Alex swallowed, overwhelmed by the gravity of her words. I'm just trying to help, he said. You do more than that, she replied. You inspire. That is rare. By the end of the night, the attack was repelled. The palace had been saved, not only by alien skill, but by the insight of a human who had stepped into their world as a stranger. Soldiers and advisors alike began to see Alex differently. No longer just the curious explorer or accidental intruder, he had become an unexpected hero. In the days that followed, Alex's role within the palace solidified. He trained with the warriors, learning alien techniques while sharing his own simple human methods. He discovered that his ability to improvise, to act outside strict rules, often solved problems the aliens could not anticipate. Yet even with victory, tensions remained. Some advisors still whispered against him, questioning why the Queen trusted a human so completely. Alex learned to navigate these whispers with caution, humor, and honesty. Nira remained his guide, explaining subtle gestures and phrases that could prevent offense or misunderstanding. One evening, as he walked with Nira through a quiet garden filled with alien plants that glowed softly, Alex finally asked the question that had been on his mind since the beginning. Why me? Why would the Queen trust me, a human, more than her own advisors? Nira smiled, her eyes reflecting the glow of the plants. Humans are different. You think in ways we do not. You feel in ways we do not. And sometimes you act when others hesitate. That is why you are her mate. Alex frowned. Mate. I still don't fully understand what it means here. It is a bond, Nira explained. Trust, protection, partnership. It does not always mean what you might assume from your world. It is deeper, stronger. You have earned it, whether you realize it or not. Before Alex could respond, the palace shuddered. An explosion rocked the outer walls. The plotting faction had struck again, this time targeting the Queen directly. Alarms blared, and warriors rushed to defend her. Alex's heart pounded. This was no longer a simulation, no longer a lesson. Lives were at stake, and he could not stand aside. Nira grabbed his arm. Remember what you have learned. Trust your instincts. Be bold. The queen appeared, surrounded by her personal guard. Her eyes met Alex's briefly, and he felt a connection, a silent understanding that he must act. Drawing on everything he had observed and learned, Alex rushed to a control panel. Rerouting defenses, sealing vulnerable sections, and using the alien technology in ways even the experienced officers had not considered in the chaos. The queen's attackers reached her chamber. Alex arrived just in time, using a combination of quick thinking and improvised tactics to prevent harm. The queen's personal guard, inspired by his courage, rallied and repelled the intruders. After the battle, the palace was quiet once more. The queen stood before him, her gaze intense but approving. You have done more than survive. You have protected this palace, my people, and me. Alex felt a mix of relief and disbelief. I just tried to help. No, she said, her voice softening. You acted when it mattered. That is what defines a mate. That is what defines a hero. The palace began to celebrate their survival, but Alex realized that his life had changed forever. No longer was he an ordinary human, exploring distant worlds. He had become a bridge between humans and aliens, showing that courage, creativity, and instinct could earn respect even in a world far beyond his own. In the following weeks, Alex continued to learn and grow. He trained with the Queen's warriors, negotiated minor disputes, and helped rebuild sections of the palace damaged in the attacks. The Queen often observed silently, sometimes offering a nod of approval, sometimes simply acknowledging his presence with a quiet smile. The people of the palace began to accept him, some with caution, others with curiosity and admiration. Alex realized that his humor, his instinctive understanding of situations, and his willingness to act without fear had earned him a place in their society. One evening, as he stood with Nira overlooking the city of the palace world, Alex finally allowed himself a moment of reflection. Stars stretched across the sky, and the glow of alien lights illuminated the landscape. He had survived, adapted, and even thrived in a world he had not understood. Nira looked at him, her expression thoughtful. You have done more than I expected. The Queen trusts you. The people respect you. And yet you remain humble. That is rare. Alex smiled faintly. I never expected any of this. I just tried to do what felt right. That is enough, Nira said. Sometimes it is the simplest acts that matter the most. As Alex looked back at the palace, he understood the truth of her words. His life had changed because he had dared to be himself, because he had trusted his instincts, and because he had acted with courage in moments that demanded it. The Queen approached him then, silent as always, and placed a hand briefly on his shoulder, a gesture of acknowledgement and trust. You are my mate, she said simply, the words carrying a weight that went beyond any human understanding. Alex nodded, understanding at last. Being called mate was more than a title. It was a bond, a responsibility, and a recognition of value. It meant trust, respect, and the possibility of shaping a future that no one had expected. As the night fell, Alex realized that he had found a new home, not only among the stars, but among people and beings who saw beyond species, who valued courage and heart above all else. His journey had begun with a joke, a simple phrase, and yet it had led him to something far greater than he could have imagined. The palace settled into quiet, the stars shining outside, and Alex Turner, human explorer and accidental mate of an alien queen, stood ready for whatever the future would bring. He had survived, he had adapted, and he had earned his place in the galaxy's vastness, where humans were often underestimated. He had shown that bravery, humor, and instinct could bridge worlds. And in doing so, Alex had not only saved lives, but had changed the course of a civilization, proving that sometimes the smallest actions of a human could leave the largest.